After 8 grueling years, the American Revolution came to a close with the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Great Britain recognized United States sovereignty of all the land east of the Mississippi River and south of the Great Lakes. The native tribes in the Old Northwest, however, were not parties to this treaty, and many of them, especially leaders such as Little Turtle and Blue Jacket, refused to recognize American claims to the area northwest of the Ohio River. The young United States government, deeply in debt following the Revolutionary War and lacking the authority to tax under the Articles of Confederation, planned to raise funds via the methodical sale of land in the Northwest Territory. This plan called for the removal of both Native American villages and American squatters. In 1790, President George Washington authorized a military campaign to secure the region. A force of 1,453 men under Brigadier General Josiah Harmar marched northwards from Fort Washington on the 7th of October, 1790, but the campaign would end in disaster. Harmar played into the hands of his enemies by dividing his forces. His divided forces were then ambushed one after the other. Suffering more than 200 casualties, the first attempt to claim the region was unsuccessful. Washington then ordered Arthur St. Clair, governor of the Northwest Territory, to mount a more vigorous effort by the summer of 1791. St. Clair was a Scottish-born Revolutionary War general. He had experience, discipline, and a reputation for careful administration. But by 1791, he was also aging, chronically ill, and weighed down by the political chaos of building an army from scratch. He had managed to raise some 2,000 troops, but many of them were inexperienced. Supplies were short, weapons were faulty, and desertions were common. St. Clair repeatedly begged the War Department for equipment, horses, and properly trained soldiers, but bureaucratic delays slowed everything to a crawl. Meanwhile, the Native Confederacy understood perfectly what was coming. Under Little Turtle's shrewd leadership, they strategized for the next inevitable invasion. If the Americans wanted to seize the land, the Native Confederacy was determined to defend it with every warrior they could muster. By the early fall of 1791, St. Clair finally put his army into motion. They marched northward from Fort Washington into the endless forests of the Northwestern Territory. Slowly carving a road through dense forest, progress was agonizingly slow. Horses died, supplies spoiled, morale sagged, and the feeling of being watched was ever present among the American soldiers. As the army trudged deeper into the territory, St. Clair received constant warnings from scouts. The natives were gathering in force. The general felt cornered. The pressure to succeed, political, personal, and national, was immense. Winter was coming, and retreat would be seen as failure. So he pressed on, hoping to establish a fortified post before snow fell. By early November, St. Clair's army reached a clearing near what is now Fort Recovery. The total number of men had been reduced to around 1,000. Unbeknownst to them, Little Turtle, Blue Jacket, and over 1,000 warriors were already closing in. Under the cover of the forest, the natives then formed a circle around the American camp. Their plan was to attack the small contingent of militia that was outside of the camp, and then to attack the main camp, encircling it from all sides. At first light, scattered gunfire at the perimeter signaled the beginning of the attack. Native warriors advanced quickly and quietly from multiple directions, concentrating their opening attack on the militia outside the main encampment. The militia was quickly overrun, and the natives pressed on towards the main camp. The natives emerged from the tree lines, and the American regulars immediately formed battle lines and fired a volley into the natives, forcing them to hold in their position in the trees. Native marksmen moved swiftly between trees and natural cover, developing a circular attack around St. Clair's position. Within 30 minutes, the native warriors had completely encircled the US camp. The regulars fought well, but their firearms were in poor condition, and they were positioned out in the open, while the natives were able to take cover within the forest. Running low on ammunition, Dark ordered his battalion to fix bayonets and charge the central native position. After 3 hours of fighting, St. Clair called together the remaining officers and, faced with total annihilation, decided to take their remaining men and try to break out of the native encirclement. This meant willfully abandoning their supply wagons, the women, children, and the wounded. The men began a bayonet charge, and as they charged, the natives scattered into the forest. Seizing this opportunity, the survivors ran as fast as they could to Fort Jefferson. The natives let the faster soldiers escape and focused instead on picking off the stragglers who couldn't keep up. The surviving men reached Fort Jefferson later that evening, having covered almost 30 miles in a single day. However, with limited shelter and no provisions available, the commander ordered all who were still able to continue on to Fort Hamilton, another 45 miles farther. Those who could not travel were left behind in an overcrowded, filthy camp with almost nothing to eat. On November 11th, St. Clair dispatched a relief convoy from Fort Washington. Led by Major David Ziegler and escorted by 100 soldiers, the party reached Fort Jefferson and discovered 116 survivors, all of them starving. In January 1792, Lieutenant Colonel James Wilkinson took command of the reformed 2nd Regiment and led his troops back to the now abandoned battlefield. Their mission was to bury the dead and recover the lost artillery, but the scale of the devastation made the effort impossible. Of the 52 officers engaged, 39 were killed and 7 wounded. Out of estimated 920 American troops present, 632 were killed and 264 wounded, leaving just 24 coming out unscathed, while the natives suffered fewer than 100 casualties. As news of the defeat spread, outrage erupted as the government faced demands to explain how such a calamity had occurred. Congress launched the first formal inquiry in American history, and although St. Clair was eventually cleared, public confidence in the nation's military leadership collapsed, and he resigned. Yet the defeat also forced the federal government to confront a deeper problem. The United States had no reliable standing army capable of defending its territory. In response, Congress authorized a new professional force, the Legion of the United States, under Major General Anthony Wayne. In this way, a disaster became the catalyst for major military reform and the eventual expansion of the young republic.